Hello, innovators. I'm Todd and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast, sponsored by Applied Software. You're invited to join our MEP and construction innovation adventure with a mission to propel this great industry forward. My guest today is Maya Leigh. She is a driven senior architect interested in the cross-section of architecture and technology and what that means for the future of property, planning, and construction. Welcome to the show, Maya.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with how you got into the AEC industry to begin with.
Sure. So I'm an architect and I work in Israel and I have 3 kids. And I've actually wanted to be an architect since I was 12 years old. I really liked drawing and arts, but I thought, I wanted to combine that with something that a little more practical. So I didn't, want to be an artist. And so I don't know how, but at 12, I thought architecture was like the perfect blend between arts and practicality. And, and then that's what I went to study. And I studied at USC and I came back to Israel after I graduated almost 20 years ago. I worked for a couple of different firms. And today I work for one of the largest firms in Israel. We have about 90 architects in 2 branches. It's called Moshe. And that's it. We do high-rise residence, offices, office campuses, urban renewal plans, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. I want to circle back on something that you said in your bio. You said you went to USC.
Yeah.
Oh, are you meaning the Southern Cal or the real USC, South Carolina?
University of Southern California. Sorry, in LA.
I went to the University of South Carolina, which is in my mind, the real, the true USC. So I'm very excited go Gamecocks. Excited to talk to you today and hear from an architect's point of view. So you reached out a few weeks ago talking about from the architecture point of view and getting into ConTech, and we'll kind of dive into that more in a minute. But on this podcast, we spend so much time talking really from the construction angle that we're going to kind of flip the script here in this episode and hear it from an architect's point of view and see what the other side thinks and how they're handling ConTech. So really excited about the conversation.
Me too.
What is a kind of a common myth though about architects that you want to debunk? So, our audience really heavy on the construction side. So now's your chance to kind of debunk some stuff.
I don't know. Maybe some people think that architects don't care that the building's going to work properly. Some people accuse architects of wanting to spend owners' money. So there are different things.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is that, it's just a lot of hard work. I think people maybe underestimate the amount of effort that goes into every little thing in the building. It doesn't just happen. It's not like a magical thing. And
there's no easy button to push.
No, not yet. We'll talk about it later maybe, but it's just really a lot of work and a lot of stress. And it's always like comes down to maybe not just the architects, but the planners sitting in the office. Like if we don't put it in the drawing or in the model, then it's just not there. And so I think maybe people sometimes forget that.
Yeah. Well, what do you see as kind of the biggest challenge that the GCs and subs should take note of?
So it's, like I said, it's like really for us, it's a labor of love, the building, we're so connected to it. We've worked on it for 2 or 3 or 5 years before the GC got it. So sometimes, we have like hundreds of decisions taking over so many years to arrive at the point where we did. And it's true that sometimes, when you look at it with fresh eyes, you say, why did you do it like this and not like that? I mean, this makes much more sense. And sometimes, it's the solution is better because you see it with fresh eyes. Just be a little gentler when you propose these changes.
Yeah.
Because it's like we really have like an emotional connection to this thing. So just like take it easy on us. And I think it's, uh, if you have a GC that really cares about the outcome, about what the building looks like, in addition to, of course, that working and not leaking water and, everything working properly, then it really makes a huge difference. I had a project where the guy on the site every day, like really, really cared about how the building looked. And he would call me and say, look, this is maybe you specify the wrong color, or I don't like how this corner is coming together. And I think the building just comes out that much better for it. So, I mean, working in collaboration is the best.
Yeah.
Not, we're not the enemy, and the GC is not. It's just we just all want it to be built and be there.
Right. Yeah, I think it's important to, espouse everybody's really trying to do the best that they can. They're trying to make the project the best that it can
Right.
in the end and get the best end result. And so give each other a little benefit of the doubt.
Right.
You don't have to, it's not different teams. Everybody's on the same team
Yeah.
trying to get the best product in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, maybe when you are able to get the, GC at the table early in the process, for whatever reason, maybe it's a company that is both the developer and it's their own general contractor, or some kind of combination like that, and you get input with somebody that really understands how the building is going to be built. Sometimes you can save a lot of headaches later.
Yeah. Nice. Well, what kind of interest level do you see architects really having in the sphere of construction technology?
So I think we talked about it before, and I see a lot of architects. They really care about new materials, better glass, more transparent glass, things like that. And I
Hmm.
don't meet a lot of architects, especially people that I meet every day, not out there in the world on the web, but people that I talk to and work with that take a lot of interest in technology, that's being developed out there.
Hmm.
Revit and BIM is sometimes seen as a bit of a burden. It was hard. The shift from AutoCAD to it was a hard shift to make. And I mean, we haven't finished making it. And, there are a lot of all these companies doing generative design. I don't see a lot of people that I know personally that really have it in their scope right now. And I think it's a great shame, because I think there are a lot of companies doing great things. And, I see a lot of potential in it.
With
Uh,
generative design?
yeah, it's not just, but all the technologies, like about a year and a half ago, I started really diving into it because, I was working on a new project and I thought, how do we always have to resolve the same problems as the previous projects? Like, you
Yeah.
always speak about the data, like we're not seem to be able to learn so much from one project to the next,
Hmm.
maybe from your own mistakes, but not from the one that the other team leader did, maybe because there isn't a lot of space for sharing and a lot of time. I'm sure, all your guests speak about it. It's always very, very stressed for time.
Hmm.
And so I started to look at what people out there are doing. And some amazing companies, um, doing both generative design and in design construction, and a lot of companies comparing the 3D model to what's happening on the job site. There's an Israeli company, Build Dots. There's, I think, Open Space, they're called. So there's a lot of technology going on, and I reached out to you also because I feel like it all starts in the planning offices, right? I mean, there's no 3D model without the architects and engineers, working on it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that self-reflection time is interesting. What kind of self-reflection is there after a project's done to see how things can be improved for the next project currently?
Yeah, almost none, because by the time the building is finished, you're already mostly moved on.
Hmm.
So I would say about, on a project, on my average project, the construction time is 2 to 3 years because they're large projects.
Right.
So about a year after construction started, I've finished doing all the work. Maybe they call me once a week with little things, and I go to the job site like once a month to see, how it's all coming together. But
Yeah.
I've already moved on to other projects.
Right.
And I've never had a chance to kind of really recap and, revisit the decisions and say this worked and this didn't work, and, not individually so much, and unfortunately also not as a team. Like, we're always looking at the next challenge. I mean, there is individual learning. I mean, I won't make the same mistake twice, but what about learning from the other guy's mistakes? I would
Right.
like to do that too.
Yeah. So ideally, in the perfect world, what does that really look like? How do different stakeholders come together and say this worked well on the project? Walk me through what that process should look like.
Wow, I wish I knew. I mean, maybe like a common environment database. I think I read this article a long time ago about this software developer, and he created this site where software developers could ask questions,
Uh-huh.
and then people answer them. And if you answer, um, you know, people rank your answers well, you get higher rating, and then your questions get more exposure, something like that. I don't remember what it's called, but in the end, it's like a huge kind of database for now. If you have to write some kind of line of code and you're not sure how exactly to organize it, you can go and it's free, right? And
Uh-huh.
you can go into this enormous database. So I don't know if you could, put together something like that for architects
Yeah.
and engineers, but regulation is very different in different countries in the world, and a residential project is very different from an office building. A single residence is different. I mean, there's so many subcategories
Sure.
that that's a challenge. But eventually, we will have all this data, right?
Yeah. I
Maybe a
mean,
bit of AI and
the ton of the data is already there too. That's been one of my
yeah,
recent little obsessions
I
is
know.
how do you
Use
how do
the
you
data.
access this data more? Because it's there. We just
I
have
think,
to find a way to plug all the pieces together.
I mean, I'm not a huge, like, I don't know how to program, but a little bit I've been listening to. I mean, we're going to need computers to do it for us. Like a human being, I don't think is able to really, really sift through all this data.
Yeah.
And that's why, these generative design companies, I've been speaking to Spacemaker AI, who've been
Hmm.
recently purchased by Autodesk, and I did a trial of their software. And there's an American company called TestFit. I don't know if you've heard of them, but
Uh,
if you haven't, you should check their stuff out. And it's amazing. And even if it just gives you that first leg of the project, both these companies, what they do is they help you with the initial kind of massing to understand how many building rights can fit on the site, with the building setbacks and how many apartment units, and maybe analyze some sun exposure or wind. That's more Spacemaker, and then test it. Has a better understanding of, how many different units of each kind go in. And so that's not the design of the building. It's just, the numbers,
mhm.
but it saves so much like work that's not so interesting for the architect to do. And it's just the beginning of the project. And you can present the client with a lot of quick numbers for them to make a decision about, the general layout. And then you can start, being creative. So I
Right.
think, eventually people using the software and then finishing the project can loop back the data back into the software of what worked well and how much did the building change from that initial, very, very schematic plan to what it looked like in the end.
Mhm.
That'd take a few years. I mean, we're not there yet.
Yeah. So on generative design, from an architect's point of view, is it kind of friend or foe? Do you see
Yeah.
it as a threat, or
I
do you see it as a
no,
compliment?
absolutely, absolutely friend. And I actually had, I was meeting these girlfriends of mine that we used to work in the previous office together, and we meet a couple of times a year for drinks and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I was telling them about it, and they said, "No, but we're going to be out of a job." And I said, "Absolutely not. I mean, the computer is just going to do for you all the mundane um, stuff that you just don't like to do so much, like
Mhm.
organizing parking spots." The beginning of the project, before the client even hired a traffic consultant, it's not architect. Sure, it's not fun to do, but the
Yeah.
client wants to know how many parking spots they can fit on their lot.
Right.
And so I think it's totally friend. And I think it'll leave the architects with more time to do the things that they're really good at. And we'll get all the, you know, not so nice parts of our job done maybe a little bit easier. That's what, that's what I hope
Yeah.
that
I
is.
really see that potential there. I think there's generative design, I think is a really cool avenue that I hope really, and I think it will really start to explode more. Several months back, we had Lily Smith, who's one of the senior product managers at Autodesk around generative design on the podcast. And she was kind of unpacking what Autodesk is, what they're taking, where they're
Hmm.
going with generative design. And I really, I think it allows the architect to unleash their creativity even more because
Yeah,
it gets rid of kind of those more um, mundane, less glamorized tasks that has been put on the architect's plate. And as you said, it allows you to tackle the stuff that you got into architecture for.
right. And it's actually, I think, 80% of our time is spent on doing stuff that, you know, maybe doesn't, is not exactly what we would want to do. So even if you can cut it back by 10, 15%, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Uh,
Um,
so how would you encourage or why should architects get more involved with where ConTech is going?
First of all, you know, it's super interesting and it's super exciting. And I think one of the things I know architects and I love is really learning new things every day. I mean, every project is different. You're always learning something new. So why not learn even more and like
Mhm.
see what people are out there, what people are doing. And also, I think that if you don't, at least understand and see where it's going in the end, you're going to be left behind, especially the younger folks, I mean, people just graduating. I think they have to um, at least understand the capabilities. I don't think every architect needs to now, learn how to do scripts and program. That's not necessarily the direction. But if you don't know anything about it, then you don't understand the capabilities. You have no awareness of the things that like a Dynamo script or a Python script can solve on, on Revit or all the plugins out there,
Mhm.
that could save you a whole bunch of work. I mean, if you're not even, reading about it or looking into it, then, you can miss out on a lot. So I think, I encourage, I send people, LinkedIn articles all the time. And if I come across something interesting, and I'm trying some of these plugins myself when I have the time, it's really crazy. I have a bid that's due on the 1st of February. So it's insane right now. But once
Yeah.
that's done,
A little more
I,
normal
I
life
delude,
comes back.
right. No, I mean, I like to delude myself that I'll have time to
There
do
you
it.
go. Nice. Yeah, I think that's so important. Our director of innovation here at Applied always says that if you ever have the thought, there has to be a better way to do this, there most likely is a better way to do it, and just
Right.
a little curiosity and go find it. He's a big Dynamo proponent for sure, but uh, I think having that kind of curiosity is a great thing.
Yeah. And somebody told me that if you, put aside like a set amount of time a month, like it doesn't have to be a lot. Like maybe you dedicate 5, 6 hours a month, to study new things, to look at
Mhm.
new things. That's going to get you somewhere. You don't have to like, you know, swim, in the ocean right away. Like you can dip your toes in it.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
even if you found one or two or three little things that help you, then it's already, worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure. So, what are some of the biggest things kind of piquing your interest right now with ConTech?
So, like I said, I really, um, I don't know how exactly that happened, but I really got into this sort of generative design. I'm not even sure, if those companies, that's exactly how they define themselves. But I was browsing LinkedIn one day and I saw this kind of demo video for SpaceMaker AI. And it really caught my attention, both because it showed like these really cool sun and wind analysis. And then it also has the parking tool,
Uh-huh.
which I know I'm getting back to it a lot, but we really, as architects, spend a whole lot of time, doing parking solutions. And it's not even really our job. And so I thought, this is cool. Like, I sit down and I offset and offset and offset, to draw the parking stalls. And they just
Yeah.
draw a rectangle and they have like 5 different options for you, like 30 seconds. And
Nice.
then, so I got in touch with them and I did the demo and I kind of tried it out. And then I also, this guy called Beam Guru, he's from Australia. I think he did a video on on their office beta.
Uh-huh.
And I watched that and I thought, this is amazing. I mean, you do a couple clicks, you tell them how many people you have per floor. They give you the amount of stairs, the amount of elevators. It plans your bathrooms for you. I mean,
Yeah.
it
That's
just
awesome.
blows my mind.
Yeah. It's cool what technology can do.
Yes. And I also really am interested by all these companies that track the construction, all the companies using drones.
Mm.
And like I said, Bill Dots is an Israeli company. They put cameras on the hard hats, and then the footage is downloaded to the computer and compares it to the 3D model. And
Nice.
Versatile is another Israeli company based in California. They put cameras on cranes and they track the job site. There are a lot of companies doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And and I think it's just amazing.
Yeah. I really see
Um,
that as the future of the
yeah,
industry too. That
right.
construction is going to
And the
look
drones,
drastically different.
yeah, and they can and you can do the whole site supervision, with the drone, and it can go way high up and inspect the glass facade and everything. And
Yeah.
just before we entered the first quarantine, I visited this guy who was trying to develop augmented reality glasses,
Uh-huh.
for job site inspection. And it was just as people started to speak about travel bans and stuff like that. And I think, look, I mean, this is amazing. The idea that you can, if our office does a project in Eastern Europe, you can sit in your office in Tel Aviv and you got somebody in, Romania walking the job site with a tablet and you can see everything that they're seeing and you could tell
Yeah.
them, look here, look there, circle things. It's an amazing tool. Who wouldn't want to cut back on some travel?
Yeah.
Now we want to go back to traveling, but at the time, so it's that kind of balance where if you can, save some of the trips, that you would do before, then I think so there's a lot of potential out there. It's really taking off in the last, I don't know, little bit. I don't know, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but
Yeah. Well, and I think that everything that has gone on with 2020
yeah,
really accelerated the whole adoption of all this different technology too, because
yeah,
you were forced to try to find new creative ways to keep the jobs going.
definitely. You had
Uh,
no choice.
that's right. Yeah, it's amazing how you can innovate when your back's against the wall.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much happening in the industry with new technologies and workflows and processes and all that stuff. What are some of your go-to resources to keep up on the latest things happening?
Well, I think LinkedIn actually proved to be an amazing place because, when I joined it, and I actually am pretty new with it, like about it a little over a year. And when I first joined it, I didn't really, maybe not 100% sure why I was doing it, but I thought
Yeah.
maybe it's about time that I have a LinkedIn account, not on Facebook. And I only have Instagram because of my kids. But I decided to really put my all into LinkedIn, and I, started to connect with people doing, BEAM and other 3D stuff, and just people post, what they're doing and what they're dealing with and their kind of difficulties. And it's just an amazing resource to see. And then if you have a question, like sometimes, I post a question and there's a discussion about what's the best way to go about it. And also in my office, there's this amazing B manager, Ellie, that I always, like to kind of pick his brain to see what he thinks. And he's in touch with a lot of people. And I also, in my one project that we're doing in BIM, we have a model manager, I guess. And this the amazing woman there I work with, Ifat, and she does a lot of like scripts. And so just speaking to people, it's just,
Hmm.
when you have a problem, just call around, ask, other architects in the office, friends, depending on what the problem is.
Hmm.
Contractors I've worked with before, other consultants, structural engineers, plumbing consultants. How do you um, ask them how they deal with the problem? Like I have this plumbing consultant, and I asked him, how do you train your people on Revit? Because he's really, really into it. And he said, I take this. It's an idea you discussed as well. The how do you call it? The reverse
Reverse mentoring.
mentorship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's never heard the expression, but he's doing it. He's taking this young. A lot of times they're architects, or they're not trained civil engineers or something like that, but they
Yeah.
they really understand Revit and the three dimensionals, and he sits them with an older plumbing, engineer that has a lot of experience, and one teaches the other one what they know, and says works beautifully. So just speaking to people and finding out how, say, I have a problem. What do you think I should do about it? Not keep everything to yourself.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan of reverse mentoring. I think it makes so much sense. I don't know why everybody isn't doing it, of
Yeah,
combining the best of both worlds there.
right,
And I think what your answer was there of just ask and talk to people is
right.
spot on. It makes me laugh though, because it seems like that's like the last resort that people go to is ask somebody that ask your network that everybody tries to find it all on their own, and never admit that you don't know something, or you made a mistake there, and trying to find a better way to do it, when really that should be our first go-to answer,
Right.
and we'll solve so many uh, problems and wasted time by just
And
asking people.
yeah. And I think coming and saying, look, I made this mistake. Have you made this mistake before? What did you do about it? I mean, we're people, we make mistakes,
Right.
So when you come with that attitude, people always, first of all, they're willing to share, like tell you about the mistakes they did. And it's back to the data we were, speaking about before. This is how you learn. Once you made, a certain mistake. Can't think. I don't know. You planned an ADA toilet, and because you didn't plan for building tolerances, it ended up being too small, and it wasn't up to code. You'll never do it again.
Yeah.
You know. So I think speaking to people and sharing, and then hopefully we'll be back to being able to participate in actual conferences, but virtual conferences have their advantage because you can you're home and you can maybe visit a few of the sessions that are interesting to you. So I recently participated in this conference on 4D, and I
Uh,
just saw a little part of it, but they showed this. They're digging a new sewage tunnel under London. Well,
oh wow.
while people are living and everything, and they showed
Yeah.
how they use the 4D simulation to help get residents to not worry so much about the project, and they were showing them how they're gonna, I don't know, I think they call it cut and cover, and it was just a half an hour, but it was amazing. I mean, people really doing amazing things, and it's really inspiring. Then you go to your office and you're not digging a sewage tunnel underneath London, you're just
Yeah.
doing a little building. So you're saying, okay, if they can do that, then my
Right.
building is probably
It's in the realm of
be
possibilities.
okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thinking of learning from past mistakes and um, you know, future focus, what does a growth mindset? What does that really mean to you?
So that's, I thought a lot about this question, and I think I try to. It's really important, even with the pressure and time schedules that are always tight, to try to think a little bit about what you're going to do before you're going to do it. And then try to maybe do something a little bit different, maybe not every day, but every week.
Uh-huh.
So this is how you're going to grow. I mean, if you always, and this is something I think you discuss with a lot of people, if you always do things the way you've always done them, then that's just boring and
Yeah.
not effective. So, just trying to do something a little bit different, trying to look at the problem from a different perspective, and trying to maybe think a little bit before we run into our, go-to teams. I think I'm trying. I don't say I'm always succeeding, but I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, why is that important to keep on kind of thinking differently and approaching it from different angles?
Because to avoid making the same mistakes and to try to work more efficiently, so you have more time, like we discussed, more time to spend on the important things, how the building's going to look, is it going to work for the people that are going to use it, instead of having to rework, I don't know, the rainwater drainage collection, whatever, I don't know, problem again and again and again. So like, I don't know how to say it exactly, but planning out what you're going to do is going to give you a much better outcome than if you just go out and do it. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I try.
Yeah. No, that's all you can do is
Yeah.
try. Or as we talked about earlier, we're human.
Right.
We're gonna make mistakes. We're not gonna do it perfect all the time. But as long as we're trying and putting that one foot in front of the other every time, I think that goes a long way. Well, looking out over the, let's say, 10 years, how do you think the AEC industry is really going to grow and change and look differently a decade?
The next 10 years.
The next 10 years.
I mean, it's a really tough question because I think people don't really know when exactly it's going to hit. So a lot of, the software is still in very early stages. It's not going to solve all your problems. When is it going to reach the point where it's really, really giving you everything that you need? It's never going to be one software, right? But I think for me, it's hard to say if it's, 2 years, 2 years or 4 years down the road. I can't tell you exactly. I'm pretty sure in 10 years, it will be different. So you gave kind of a time span of, it's just everything I hope will be more automated, and the connection between the job site and the architect and the engineers, the planning offices will be more seamless. And hopefully people will be on the job site, with the 3D model.
Yeah.
And maybe we won't issue so many 2D representations of our drawings anymore. Although I have to admit, in that respect, I'm a bit old school, and I do still like to work with 2D prints, paper.
Yeah. Well, paper has its place.
Right.
I mean, I have paper right in front of me right now, taking notes. So,
you know what? When I was, 15, I was working like a summer job at this firm that my mom worked for. She's a chemist. And back then they spoke about the paperless office.
Yeah.
And I was 15 a long time ago. And it's not paperless at all.
Yeah. I don't know if you'll ever get 100% rid of paper.
Right. And maybe we shouldn't. So I think a lot of times we see the technology, we can't always predict how it's going to impact us or the world, because the technology then changes how, we do things. I mean, people say it about the iPhone, who thought 10 years ago? I think I read it one time about the washing machine. I mean, the person that invented the washing machine thought they're going to have the housewife be able to just, rest easy. Now she doesn't have to hand wash the stuff. I don't think they imagined that we're going to be doing laundry every day.
Right.
So,
several loads of laundry in my house.
Because you got 3 little kids, right?
Yeah, they are. Create a lot of laundry.
But 50, 60 years ago, you just didn't wash the stuff just as often, or 100 years ago, I don't know, but you didn't wash stuff as often as we do now. So,
right.
I mean,
because it wasn't as easy. So you just held it off.
So who knows? I mean, we'll be building more buildings. We'll be building faster. Now sometimes clients come and they say, okay, we want the project done in 3 years. And I said, hello, have you done a project lately? How are we going to finish it in 3 years? So
Yeah.
maybe in 10 years, they'll want it done in a year. I mean, I don't know that we can really predict. I think we just have to like stay current, keep learning and, evolve with it. I don't know if,
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
yeah.
that's fair enough. Nice. Well, how do people get a hold of you and find out more information?
Well, I think LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So it's Maya Leigh. I mean, maybe you can I can send you my
Yeah, we can
link,
link over to it for sure.
right? And Moshe, you can find us on Instagram. So I'll send you that as well.
Perfect.
And I'm happy to talk to people and to discuss anything. It's
Nice.
super cool. I mean, look, I found you. I mean, it's just. I mean, the internet is an amazing place.
It is. And LinkedIn is definitely
Yeah.
one of my favorite places. I have LinkedIn open all the time. I'm
Right.
slightly, probably a little addicted, but
Yes. The social media movie never discussed it. So I think we're still okay there. It's not
that's
big.
true. Oh, the social dilemma. Oh man,
Yeah, the
I turned
social
off all my
dilemma. Sorry.
notifications after reading that. That's or watching that. That was such a good
I think
Netflix
that was the
documentary.
best take from the movie is just turn off your notifications.
It does
And
make
then
a
you're
big
good.
difference.
Right.
Yeah.
It is.
Never mind that it's up on my desktop all day long and
Right.
I'm looking at my desktop. That's a side
It,
factor, but
yeah. I mean,
uh,
for us in Israel, WhatsApp is a bigger,
oh really?
yeah, I mean, constantly.
Nice. Well, as a listener, you know this question's coming. It's my question I ask everybody. What does innovation mean to you?
So I mean, I think it's just not doing the same thing that you've done before. Like not saying this is how we've always done it, so let's continue doing it. Oh, CAD was fine. Let's just keep on drawing CAD drawings. It worked fine for us before.
Yeah.
No, it's not a good enough reason to continue doing it.
Mhm.
So I think to be innovative is to do something a little different
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
every week.
I love that
Uh,
curiosity of challenging even what has been working because it may
yeah,
not be working in the future.
and also, I mean, it worked fine, but maybe you can make it better.
Yeah.
Better design, more effective, faster, less errors, something a little bit better, tastier. I don't know.
Yeah. I like it. Well, Maya, thanks so much for coming on and giving the architect's vantage point on ConTech. Really appreciate
Sure.
it.
And anybody that's interested, happy to have reach me.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
Bye.